Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Advancement Center, and welcome to the world of magic and miracles. As always, I greet you with a smile. It's quite an experience to look at yourself in the screen and know you're not the same person anymore. Even though the familiarity is there, you've transformed into more of who you really are. It's quite a story that each of us have. And today I'm continuing the story of the Arcturian that I spoke about last week. So listen, let it take you wherever it takes you. If nothing else, it expands the reality of existence and your place in it. But there's no need to track anything. If you can feel my transmission of the words, the honor, the respect, the awareness, and the love, that will be enough. Sanat Kumara, Starship Commander, Sector Commander, and protector of the Milky Way galaxy and Earth, is speaking once again. In the early history, we are talking in the range of from 27 million to 10 million years ago, the ephemerals existed in a fifth dimensional reality and began to experiment with descending into third dimensional Earth reality. They were explorers of consciousness. Then later, after I encountered my beloved Izura 10 million years ago, some but not all of the ephemerals experimented with descending into the biological reality of animals, specifically the early primates. Then we move forward into this interesting time of your last 1 million years, when intergalactic civilizations became more fascinated with your planet because it had developed primate intelligence, which was a result of biology operating on its own in relationship to evolution, and in some cases due to the presence of the ephemerals in their biology. Ancient Greece knew them as nymphs. Approximately 400,000 years ago, an intergalactic civilization known as the Anunnaki came across your planet. They were on a mission, a mining expedition to find gold, due to the fact that their atmosphere had become degraded and their scientists had discovered that the properties of gold could help stabilize their environment. This expedition team discovered that your planet was rich in gold. It possessed far more gold than it does now. And so they sent teams of miners, which were a combination of Anunnaki and what you would call robots. Over the course of many centuries, the Anunnaki discovered, to their displeasure, that Earth's relationship to the sun was detrimental to them, as was the atmosphere. They looked for a solution. Being extremely clever, they noticed that some of the mammals, some of the primates wandering around had a higher degree of intelligence than the other group. These could be trained. What they did not realize was that these particular primates chosen were trapped ephemerals. The ephemerals had a glimmer in their eyes. noting their higher states of intelligence. The Anunnaki scientists decided to crossbreed, and they took certain attributes from their own DNA and merged that with the primates that they had chosen to create beings, human beings. They were more intelligent, more autonomous, but could be easily controlled. And the adventure, shall we say, became even more complex. It was determined by the Anunnaki that when mining was complete, the hybrid beings should be destroyed. Going against the dictum of the collective Anunnaki, a few renegade Anunnaki chose to save a few of their favorites. To these lesser primates, the Anunnaki were like gods. And the seed of many religions began when the Anunnaki left the planet and left behind these more elevated primates to fend for themselves. After the Anunnaki left, a plethora of other intergalactic civilizations interacted with these hybrid humans, and thus intergalactic DNA was mixed into the human geological gene pool. This is why I say that humanity is intergalactic royalty. Altogether, you have been affected by between 23 and 24 different alien civilizations. So you, as modern humans, possess in the deeper stratas of your unconscious memory two important streams of knowledge. But the difficulty with unconscious knowledge is that it generates conscious actions without understanding. The two streams that I speak to here are the ephemerals within you. In your prehistory, the ephemerals became trapped. And so there is a deep feeling of being trapped in matter and a yearning to go home, but an inability to do so. This entrapment, by the way, was a result of the force of gravity. For as your ancestors, the ephemerals, descended from fifth into the third, their light bodies took on mass. And when something has mass, it is affected by gravity. So in your deep collective unconscious, there is a feeling of having fallen into matter, a yearning to return home, and no way to do so. I, David, think that many of us have felt that feeling of being trapped within this world of matter. If you are like me, you can feel the real you, the true you, and sometimes you can see yourself outside of this body of matter, but somehow you always remain tethered, and there's a feeling of being stuck. Now I know why. Sanat speaks again. The second stream has to do with your genetic manipulation conducted by the Anunnaki to make you a slave race. And therefore, in your deep unconscious, there is a yearning to be in the right relationship to the gods and a tendency to become subservient and to worship because you do not understand the true reality or nature of the beings you deem to be higher than yourself. And I, David, say that this manipulation has affected every human being born into forgetfulness, wanting to worship someone, be subservient, live in a state of hierarchy, and having a desire to please something or someone who you have deemed as greater than yourself. This is one of the main causes for humanity's judgment against itself and their difficulty in remembering and knowing who and what they really are. Intergalactic royalty. And now these are the words of Azaron, the Arcturian healer. I find it odd that I have been requested to speak. I was known as Dr. Azaron. I was a medical officer on an Arcturian starship, but during a skirmish and outright battle with nefarious star travelers, I was killed. This occurred in protection of Earth. I am now known simply as Azaron, for I am now in the 9th dimension, and my the 10th dimension, and my tethers to my Arcturian reality are few. It is as if I am standing outside of the Arcturian dream. And from this vantage point, what seems so vitally real with its mission now seems like a distant fantasy. It is difficult to describe my nature as a 10th dimensional light being because there are so few references. Through the 9th dimension, we have what we experience as form, but in the 10th and higher dimensions, our Arcturian form, which is human-like, becomes geometric patterns of light. My transition to the 10th dimensional reality was abrupt. I suspect it is similar to the disorientation a human being feels when he or she dies. The sensory input from my body suddenly stopped, and for me, it was like walking through a long corridor with steps that moved up. And even as I was walking up the steps, I knew that I was dying and making my transition into a higher vibratory level of existence. There was in that moment a choice point. I could have chosen to reincarnate as an Arcturian, or I could have chose to go to a higher dimensional reality. I chose the latter, partly because I was curious. Curiosity has always been my greatest ally. It's what made me excel at Arcturian medicine. But now that I am no longer Arcturian, but more like a rotating sphere of light with Arcturian dispositions, I am freed from the constraint of my previous mission, and I am in the place of self-reflection. I find it most interesting from my vantage point that Sanat Kumara is rethinking some of the choices he made and weighing the needs of the heart against the needs of the mission. Arcturians are obsessed with mission. It is in their very nature. And when Sanat Kumara enters his heart into the equation, it is no small matter. As a civilization, we are evolving like all civilizations, and either one is evolving or one is devolving. One cannot remain in a static state very long. As one of the elders, Sanat Kumara's contemplation is one that many advanced individuals in Arcturian culture are considering. As a 10th dimensional light being, my relationship to others are of a far different order than those I experienced as an Arcturian. I do not process information in the same ways I did before. I do not have a heart and mind as separate categories of experience. I am luminous awareness with empathetic potential. As I said, I am new to this 10th dimensional reality, and even while I question why I have been asked to share my impressions, I will continue to reveal the nature of 10th dimensional reality as I experience it. There is a great wounding of the Arcturian heart. It has risen from a dichotomy between the heart and the mind, and I do believe that a similar wounding of the heart exists for many human beings as well. When I was an Arcturian and experienced myself as an Arcturian, I lived and breathed the mission, whatever it was. If my heart questioned, I would subdue it with my will in order to serve the mission. For an Arcturian, this is almost like a reflex. It is culturally expected. But now the older members of our civilization, such as Sanat Kumara and others, are questioning the wisdom of this dichotomy. It is an odd situation for my fellow Arcturians as I observe this form from a state of consciousness that is outside of the Arcturian dilemma and outside the human dilemma of heart versus mind. There is this rising in the Arcturian mind, a collective wave of sadness, and although we do not experience emotions the same way as you, we possess them, and sometimes they possess us. Running parallel to this wave of sadness about the Arcturian dichotomy between the heart and the mission is our collective commitment to protect your sector of space from what we call nefarious star travelers. Your world is already infected and manipulated enough by these types of interferences. It is a very odd thing being a 10th dimensional light being. I still have tethers, emotionally speaking, to the Arcturian civilization and to the crew of the starship on which I served. And I can sense in them, through my empathetic potential, varying degrees of discomfort. And this discomfort is arising from a collective recognition that something is amiss. If I were to summarize the Arcturian dilemma at this point in time, I would say it is based upon a fundamental question. How can you be true to the mission without abandoning the heart? And how can you be true to the heart without abandoning the mission? I have also been asked to share my impressions and my new understanding regarding the nature of medicine. I find it oddly amusing, curious, and comforting that my inclinations regarding the practice of medicine have continued with me into this 10th dimensional reality. But here I have no apparatus. There are no tools. There is nothing to hold and manipulate, for I do not have hands. I do not have a body. I am a rotating sphere of light. And yet, very shortly after my death, I have become aware of this 10th dimensional reality to some extent. I found in myself an arising of desire to heal. And I found that I could manipulate light in new ways through the union of my intentions and the actual light filaments of my body, my spherical rotating field of light. Because I had deep connections to my fellow Arcturians on the starship, I was drawn back to them, and so I began to visit my former patients and would do so when they were sleeping. And I continued my work of healing without my apparatus, but solely through my will and the nature of light. I am aware now that human beings have higher dimensional healers available to them as well, and much of this healing takes place while humans are sleeping. I mention this because you can call to yourself higher dimensional healers. You can request their assistance before you go to sleep. You must ask, or it cannot be given. So I am putting you on notice, you, the human, that there are higher dimensional healers available to you, but you must ask. And for some of you, you must transcend your belief that you don't deserve assistance. But that is a whole topic unto itself. And so I would say to you, if you wish assistance from these higher dimensional healers, ask for their assistance just as you are going to sleep. Ask specifically what you wish assistance with. You do this in your mind through your thoughts. Your calling to them for their assistance gives them permission to work with you. For some of you, more sensitive in nature, their work will be apparent. You will sense their presence either energetically or in dream time. For those of you not sensitive in this way, you may simply notice an improvement. The degree of improvement depends upon the expertise of the higher dimensional healer and on your willingness to accept healing. And so I would say that if you experiment with this type of healing, that you specifically request the highest level of healing possible and request that the higher dimensional healer who works with you have the highest level of expertise available. And then the other side of the equation is to root out of yourself any thoughts and impressions that you do not deserve this type of healing. Engaging these two areas will secure for you the highest level of healing possible. And finally, here are the words again from Yeshua and Mary Magdalene. I am also Arcturian, but I am not Sanat Kumara. Many reading this no doubt know my name as Yeshua, Jesus of Nazareth. I wish to clear away a few misconceptions about me and my message. I am an Arcturian, an emanation of me in the form of a human being lived upon this earth. The Bible, a highly distorted document, reports that I was born of a virgin birth, that Mary, my mother, received the Holy Spirit. In point of fact, it was an Arcturian conception. In the joining of these two, I was conceived, and although I had a human body, half of my genetic inheritance was Arcturian. In other words, my mother was human and my father was a male Arcturian. Through my Arcturian nature, I could easily enter into contemplative states of mind and make contact with my fifth dimensional self. For I, as Jesus, was just a small speck of myself that resided in the fifth dimension. Can you imagine how strange it was to be a human being 2,000 years ago, possessing half of my being that was so advanced and not of this world? As I grew to be a man and understand my nature more fully, I realized that my fifth dimensional aspect possessed technologies I could access, and many of the miracles reported and attributed to me were a result of my using this fifth dimensional technology. My message was simple: love one another. This attribute, this capacity to empathize with others, is an Arcturian trait. In the moment of my resurrection, as reported in the Gospels, my body disappeared from the tomb. What was not reported because it was not understood was that I used Arcturian technology to do so. I simply shifted my physical body's atomic components into the fifth dimension using Arcturian light form technology. Very shortly after my death and disappearance from the earth, infighting and jealousy took sway, and my most beloved disciple, my most evolved student, who in truth became my teacher, was my wife, Mary Magdalene. Yet paradoxically, she was ushered out by the narrow minds of the remaining disciples. I find it ironic and full of pathos that I was faced with a similar choice as reported by Sanat Kumara. To an Arcturian, the mission is always the most important thing, eclipsing the needs of the heart. I left behind my beloved Magdalene and our daughter, a fact not reported in the Gospels. I too, as does Sanat Kumara, look back and wonder, would I do it all over again? I agree with Sanat when he says that we Arcturians must begin to bring the equation of the heart into the overarching commitment to our mission. I am comforted by the fact that I am with my beloved Magdalene, but I am disheartened by what has happened to my message. And now, Mary Magdalene. What I wish to address here is the story of how I came to understand my Arcturian roots, my Arcturian emanation, and how I recognized in Yeshua the same, meaning Arcturian emanation, and how in the joining of the two, he and I created a mission. When I was born, I knew that I was different, and so did my mother. God bless her, or should I say, Goddess bless her. It was her recognition of my differences that led her to take me to the temple of Isis, where I was trained in the mysteries of the great goddess, the cosmic mother. This training involved long hours of what you would call meditation. I was free from the constraints of the physical world during these moments, and I would travel through the cosmos on the wings of Isis. And it was during this period of my training that I often found myself on Arcturus, carried there on the wings of Isis through a wormhole, a channel between the worlds, so far apart, yet so close in consciousness. I was trained to tune my mind so that I could enter these other worlds by my own volition. It was at some point in the cycle of training and service to the temple that I discovered my emanation, my Arcturian root. And I lived a very strange paradox for a while, experiencing myself as a human woman training to be a priestess, and at the same time processing an identity as an Arcturian. It was a strange mismatch between a human and the emanation, but as I begin to more fully understand my emanation, I begin to fully appreciate its gifts, as well as its what I shall call challenges. I am coming forward to speak in this material for the benefit of others who possess Arcturian emanations, and for those who possess emanations from other worlds as well. Yours is a unique challenge to live the life as a human being, knowing that there is more to you. And yet, how do you bring the unique gifts of your emanation into your human life without drawing too much attention, too much of the wrong attention to yourself? Make no mistake about it, as a collective, human beings mistrust the emanations from other worlds. These quandaries must be dealt with by all those who carry emanations, and my story is no better than yours. Yet I hope in my recounting of the story, you may better understand your own predicament. And it is my hope that you will find a path through yourself whereby you can appreciate and love your emanation for what it is. In its simplest form, an emanation is an energetic that possesses its own intelligence. In my case, it was an Arcturian emanation. Thus, I carried within my nature an energetic response to situations that was Arcturian, not human. And the intelligence I used at times to solve problems was Arcturian and not human. To my fellow humans, this just seems odd and strange. But to those who were psychic, it was clear that I was operating with an emanation as part of my nature. Thus, emanations impart to the individual ways of being and ways of acting in the world that are different from and sometimes contrary to the human nature of the individual. After I completed my training in the art of and science of sexual transformations and the alchemy of Horus, it was determined by my teachers that I was well prepared for the task. After my final initiation, my teacher took me to the inner sanctum and handed me a snake bracelet. This was a symbol and marked me to those who knew as a high initiate and a master of the sex magic of Isis. And the day that I met Yeshua by the well, I was wearing this bracelet, and his mother, Mary, also an initiate of Isis, recognized my bracelet. And in that moment, when I looked into his eyes and into her eyes, I understood why my teacher in the temple had changed my course of destiny. The emanation within me, dormant for all those years, was now entering a mission that had been planned long before my embodiment as a human woman. And this story involved the Holy Trinity of Yeshua, the Mother Mary, and myself. And I laughed at the irony of those words. The central feature of an emanation I wish to discuss is the amnesia that surrounds it. I knew that I was different from others. I didn't know why exactly, but I knew. My mother knew as well, and when she took me to the temple of Isis, the high priestess saw it. And when I was passed from the care of my mother into the care of the high priestess, I entered a new chapter in my life. But even then, I did not understand my emanation. Even when I found myself flung through the portal to Arcturus, through altered states of mind, I did not understand my emanation. As my teacher took me under her wing and unveiled more and more of my emanation to me, I began to slightly understand it, but I find it curious to this day that I did not fully understand it until I looked into the eyes of Yeshua. My mind was shattered by the recognition, and my heart was shattered by my love for him. And through the pieces of myself, I looked into the eyes of Mary, the mother, who recognized me, and I knew in a flash the full breadth of my emanation, and the purpose of my mission. All of it revealed to me in an instant by the well. How ironic and how typical. As Yeshua and I began to discover more about each other, it was clear to both of us that we were on a mission together. He would be the one presented to the world, and I would be in the shadows. I had no problem with this, and I still have no problem with this. It was part of the mission, and part of the mission involved me transferring to Yeshua the cosmic powers that I had access to through the mysteries of Isis. And in our lovemaking, we would enter into high tantra together. And there were many times when we would find ourselves in two places at once. Our bodies would be entwined in sexual embrace and ecstasy, while at the same time we experienced ourselves on Arcturus, undergoing rituals of empowerment. And at times we would both enter into regeneration chambers using Arcturian technology to strengthen our human selves. When two persons, each possessing a similar emanation, join together, great power and creativity can be accessed. While we were together alone, we shared ecstatic states of body and mind that I could never describe with words. We flew together into the highest realms, and it was the most fulfilling time of my life. It was those moments, those times when I was alone with Yeshua, away from the world. But we were on a mission that involved the world, and there is much that I could say about this, but it is not the focus of my discussion at this time. In this material, Yeshua came forward briefly to discuss his quandary of the mission versus the needs of the heart. We still discuss this between us and our realm of consciousness, where we join together again in the ninth dimension. As a woman, as a human woman, I understand the needs of the heart, and I am pleased that the Arcturian civilization is finally turning its attention to this paradox. How it will turn out, I cannot say, but since the solution will come from the Arcturian civilization itself, I trust that the resolution will be intelligent and highly creative. And now I return to my primary reason for speaking in this material. There are many reading these words who carry emanations from other worlds. There are many beings entering embodiment as human beings at this time who also carry emanations from other worlds. This is how humanity is most often affected from off-planet intelligence. The pressure between being a human and an emanation can be immense, yet this pressure is like the pressure that turns coal into diamonds. If you can bear the pressure, you will extract something from your life of great value. And having been through a human experience as an Arcturian emanation, I can say that it is worth the price, and I have no intention of returning. I wish those of you who carry emanations from other worlds both graciousness and great serendipity in your life upon this most interesting and yet still primitive planet. May your emanation be a blessing to humanity, and may your experience on this earth be a blessing to you. Thank you, Yeshua and Mary. Your words pierce my heart with such love and compassion. What you did for humanity and the human entity on this planet will never be fully understood, but know that it is still resonating and serving as a doorway for all to enter their own magnificence. Mary, your explanation of our emanations and your description of your journey answers so many questions. You said you found yourself resolving any problems through your Arcturian emanation, as well as how you would respond in certain moments. So you would not or could not respond as a human might, and that could cause some difficulties and cause people to think that you were odd and strange. This is my experience of almost everyone here now. No two people resolve things or respond to things in the same way, and now I know why. They leave their humanness and respond or act out of their emanation, thus bringing an off-world intelligence into this physical plane where Earth resides. Please know that your love is felt beyond measure, and even though as an Arcturian with a commitment to the mission as your dominant trait, your love for all life everywhere has and will never be questioned. I am happy that you are together in the ninth dimension, and I want you to know, as one who also has an emanation as an Arcturian, that I have had a moment where I chose the heart over the mission. So what our civilization, the Arcturian civilization, has resolved, I have received, and there now is balance between the heart and the mission. Thank you, Sanat Kumara. Thank you to your beloved Izura, and thanks to you all, my beloved friends. I will see you in the ninth dimension, but not yet. For now, I am bringing forward what you started as the mission continues with unsurmountable power while having the freedom to follow your heart. Cheers to you all. It has been my great honor to share your words and bring you into the light of the physical plane once again. I am David, and I love you all. Thank you.